The first time my stepson opened my door, I thought it was an accident. The second time, I wasn't so sure. And the night I heard him laugh outside my locked room, I knew. It wasn't carelessness. It was deliberate. And my husband refused to believe me, so I walked away forever. Please subscribe and support me. And press the bell icon for more interesting stories. The first time it happened, I told myself it must have been an accident. I had just stepped out of my bath, wrapped in a linen towel, when the door to my bedchamber swung open without warning. Standing there, frozen in the doorway, was my stepson, Edward Franklin Lawson. He was 19, tall and lanky, with his father's sharp jawline and a troubling habit of never knocking before entering a room. His eyes flickered over me for barely a second before he muttered a hasty, "Pardon me," and slammed the door shut behind him. My cheeks burned hot. I had only been married to Charles Henry Lawson for 6 months, and blending our households had already proven difficult. Edward kept his distance, either locked away in his room or off at the stables with his friends. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just youthful carelessness. But then it happened again. That afternoon I was fastening the buttons of my dress when the door creaked open. And there he was again, Edward Franklin. This time he didn't leave immediately. He lingered, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Oh," he said casually, "didn't realize you were dressing." I clutched my collar closed, my pulse racing. "Edward Franklin, you must knock," I said firmly, though my voice trembled. He only shrugged, hands buried in his pockets. "Sure thing." But the way he said it held no remorse. That night, I told Charles Henry what had happened. He sighed weary and said, "The boy's absent-minded, Clara Mae. I'll speak with him." But nothing changed. Days later, as I sorted through my hat boxes, the door opened again. Edward stood in the threshold, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on me. This time there was no apology. "What do you want, Edward Franklin?" I demanded. "Looking for father," he answered flatly, his eyes still on me. "He's at the bank. You'll need to leave." For a long, heavy moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he turned and shut the door, too carefully, too deliberately. That's when I knew. This was no accident. From then on, I locked my door. I arranged my errands around Charles Henry's absences. I even considered asking a carpenter to install a bolt, though I dreaded the questions it would raise. One evening, when Charles Henry stayed late at a council meeting, I had just loosened my corset strings when the doorknob rattled. The lock held. From the hallway came a low chuckle, then retreating footsteps. The next morning over breakfast I said, "Charles Henry, this cannot continue. He's doing this intentionally." His face hardened. "Are you accusing my son of improper intentions?" "I'm telling you I don't feel safe in my own home," cried. But Charles Henry only shook his head. "You're imagining things, Clara Mae." I wanted to believe him. I truly did. But that afternoon, passing Edward's room, I overheard him speaking to his friend. "She jumps near out of her skin every time," he laughed. "It's downright entertaining." My stomach turned. That night I packed my steamer trunk. When Charles Henry returned, I was waiting in the parlor. "What's the meaning of this?" he demanded. "I'm leaving. I'll stay with my sister, Eleanor Grace, for now." "You'd leave over this." "It's not only this," I said steadily. "It's your refusal to see the truth. It's your son's disregard for propriety. It's that I can no longer feel safe here." At that moment, Edward appeared in the hallway, smirking. "Women do tend to exaggerate," he muttered. I rose without another word, pulled on my bonnet, and signaled for the hired boy to fetch my trunk. And as the carriage carried me away from that house, I realized something painful but certain. I had married a man who would always choose his son's comfort over my security. and I would never again live where I wasn't respected. I never returned. Months later, I heard through the Ladies' Society that Charles Henry and Edward had quarreled violently. Edward left to work on a cattle drive in Texas, and Charles Henry sent letter after letter begging me to return. But by then, I had already begun divorce proceedings with Judge Robert Whittaker, because some boundaries, once violated, can never be repaired. And at 32 years old, I had finally learned the most important lesson of my life, to value my own peace above all else.